Everybody thinks that directing is an exercise of control, and that's a myth. Do not get wrapped in the industry side of this. But the act of art is the principle. You need to preserve that. Well, look, to me, it's a strange profession we chose as directors because it's a combination of being tough as nails and being as permeable and fragile as you can. And you need to sort of separate the two. You cannot be completely fragile because then you won't make movies. You used to become a poet or a painter, you know? Because a filmmaker is never going to die and they're going to find a drawer full of movies that he never did. And, oh my God, and it's going to be on DVD and Blu-ray. It won't be. You know? You have to be a tough motherfucker to get into the business side and fight and tell the bastards, no, no. And I won't do it. I'll do it my way. A lot of fights. So you have to be tough in that. And you have to fight and be able to defend what the movie needs to be defended. And then at the same time, you need to be incredibly permeable and fragile. And for example, you can be screaming at your producer one moment about the crane not being ready, and then you have to be completely open with your actor to watch the actor perform. You cannot, so it's very, very strange. And that goes for the childlike imagination. You have to preserve that. And yes, it can get really bad, but I think that's the one thing that that experience gives you. I've been doing this for 25 years now. And, after year 20, you go into the set and there is a certain thing that clicks and allows you, but you're always mortally afraid.
Soy un fauno. Vuestro más humilde soy.
You are what you are. And that's what you bring to the movies you make. It doesn't, all we can do as artists is the synthesis of something that has been done before. We're 2,000 years in, at least, in civilization. Every song has been sung, every story has been told, but your voice hasn't been heard. Your voice is yet to be heard. And in that I package two things that are one and the same, your qualities and your defects. And as a Latin American, the way I live it, we could be having dinner and somebody says, I saw a ghost, and they say, oh yeah, pass the bread. It doesn't matter. I saw a ghost. Sure you did. My grandmother came to visit me last night and told me a secret from heaven. Sure. Where's the salsa? Magic and realism in Mexico, same thing. Same thing.
Brilliant.
That's why Buñuel went to Mexico and said, this is the most surreal country in the world. Because it's absolutely true. And that's why what an European would qualify as an absurdist thing is what is natural to me. You take the things that are more extraordinary and you root them in the ordinary. The conflation of those two things. And if you come from a European or Anglo-Saxon point of view, these things are different, tonally. But for a Mexican, it's second nature. We are altar makers. You give me 5 genres and I'll organize them in a certain shape and I'll make a little altar. Crazy. It's gonna have a, like magpies. We find a shiny object and accommodate next to a less shiny object, and we construct things, and that's synthesis, by the way. That's what is new. Nobody has organized those shiny bits the way you do it.
Everybody thinks the director is purely everybody thinks the directing is an exercise of control. And that's a myth that we enthrone, because of course the great legend is Erich von Stroheim did 120 takes, Orson Welles knew everything, blah, blah, blah. But I can tell you in reality, the directing, no matter who you are, is the art of orchestrating accidents, because of course you prepare. Of course I color code and design the movie to a T. Of course all that happens. But every day you're gonna get 30 curveballs. The sun is setting, the actor twists his ankle, the car crashed, whatever it is, and you cannot say, oh well, because the day cost between $25,000 to $125,000. you know. So you cannot stop, and you need to take what is there and make it work, you know. And I think that part then is combined with the fact that as a childlike imagination, you need to be open to see what is right about it. You know, let me put it another way. If an actor acts and you have only one idea of how the scene should be, the actor is going to come with great colors. He's going to put them on the table, and you're not going to see any of those colors. You're just going to see red, because that's what you wanted. And maybe green is better. You can say to the actor, try this other way, and if it's the right way and it's your way, you insist. But you have to be open, and the same is true of every accident you may encounter. There is a great Zen saying that says, the obstacle is the path. And it's absolutely true for a director. Whatever you see as the obstacle is yelling at you, this is the way to a better solution. So an obstacle is only a path that has been looked at wrong, you know, and I think that's a thing that we do in our craft that we don't talk about enough. I think the process of discovery is, look, making a movie, in my opinion, is you're constructing something that needs to look real. And like every lie, the more details you add, the more truthful it sounds. If I told you I'm late because I couldn't find parking, you can go either way. But if I tell you I'm late because I was about to park on Wilshire and this red Corvette just parked and this guy was sipping his latte and I was honking and he wouldn't turn, you added details that you go, well, it's a truth experience, you know? It's a truth, and then it's the same with film. The more layers you add, the more truthful it seems, or real. All of my life, when I approach a new project, and I'm 50 years old and I've done now I don't know how many movies as producer, director, blah, blah, blah. And I still have the same emotion when I go into a project. I go, how much am I willing to lose to do that image? And there's always one or two images in every project that you would mortgage your house, sell your car, give everything you have to make sure that image comes to safe. What you go through, doesn't matter if they give you X amount of time, but you need to always protect the images that are crucial. So there's always an image that makes you say, I'm willing to forsake everything I have in life to protect that image. And the second thing I feel very important, do not get wrapped in the industry side of this. That's what I find really heartbreaking, that people are now, a lot of times you're discussing film with people that love film, and it's like you're listening to an agent from an agency or a head of a studio. They know the grosses, they know who's doing this, they know. That's absolutely not important. The important thing is that tradition you are going to belong to, and do not get caught on the other side. Yeah. Stay true to the other side that needs you and needs to exist urgently.
Yeah, we need people that are passionate about telling stories. Numbers are great, but
I tell stories. You when you have a movie and it's opening, yes, pay attention to your number obsessively. Saturday, Friday, Thursday, yes. But beyond that, do not get caught in the business. That's very important to forget.
Near positions and awaiting orders.
Remain in the Miracle Mile, engage at your discretion.
My first American experience was almost my last experience because it was with the Weinsteins at Miramax. And I can tell you, two horrible things happened in the late 90s. My father was kidnapped and I worked with the Weinsteins. And I don't know which one was worse. Actually, the kidnapping made more sense. Because I knew what they wanted, you know? And I really hated the experience, but I learned to fight. And two things that happened that were positive on Mimic. I lost casting battles, I lost story battles, I lost many battles, but the one thing Mimic is, and 100% is visually, exactly what I wanted. Our direction, camera moves, color palette, cinematography. And I realized, okay, I learned that, and I learned a lot more. I really, on Mimic, I learned to move the camera in a really beautiful choreography with the actors, because Bob Weinstein was always saying, why don't you move the camera? You never move the camera. I go, okay, I'm going to move the camera, but I'm going to move the camera the way I want it. And I devised this idea of counter movements for the overs, and that's the way I shoot now. Without that experience, I would have not progressed. And when anyone approaches me and says, I want to be a director, I always tell them, then you should just be a director and don't say I'm going to be, because you can direct good or bad, but you can direct from your iPhone, from your cell phone, with your sister's cousin video camera, with a webcam, with right now, except in the most abject circumstances, most people can get a hold of an image audiovisual generating machine, and they can be directing and then realize that they are already directing. Directing doesn't mean anymore and shouldn't mean anymore directing feature films. And I think that so as long as you have minimal access to any media, you should be a director if you feel like you want to. And the advice I feel is that it's always better to answer through your work the things you don't like in a piece of media. If you dislike the movies that are being made, make your own. Show the world what you want to do, what you think this medium should be. So the advice is, if you want to direct, and even easier, if you want to write. I think that writing is one of the only things that can be done with very little resources. And even if you die and you were unpublished, you still have a chance. It's truly, you cannot do that with directing. You need other people, you need a little bit of help, you need at least an actor in front of the camera, but I think what I say is go and do it. I was having breakfast with Daniel Krauss, who I was doing Troll Hunters with, and I said, what else are you working on? And he said, well, I have this idea about a janitor that falls for a creature in a super secret government facility and takes him home. And I thought, that's it. I said, I'll buy that idea and I'll write the screenplay. And it's my next movie. And, like Devil's Backbone, like Pan's Labyrinth, like this, there was a complete certainty on my part that everything would work. That doesn't happen on the others. There's not, those three movies and Chronos, there was complete certainty. Like I had an unwavering belief. Then it wavers at the end, after you go through hell. But you have the certainty, I must make this movie. And it's not ego, and you don't want it to be liked, you don't want it to be accepted, you just need to make it. And it's a very different sensation than the other times where you go, I want to see this sequence or that sequence, but no, this is a complete, almost like you're listening to a song, and it comes to you complete at once, I think what I strive to is to connect deeply with audiences that like what I do, even if the audience at large does or doesn't. It makes no difference to me. I make weird movies no matter what size the movie is, and they're not for everyone. And a lot of people may be puzzled or say, why did he do this way? But I only do things that I hope speak to somebody in the same fetishistic way that I was spoken to by people that got high on their own supply. Because I get high on my own supply. I make the movies because I want them, and I whether it's robots and monsters duking it out, or it's a post-war fable, or whatever it is, they're done because I wanna see them. We exercise in a thing that is an act of art and an act of commerce. And the act of commerce hurts only in that it tells you you're not communicating to more people than you wanted, Mm-hmm. But the act of art is the principle. You need to preserve that before anything else. That's your primal concern, I think.
What's some stuff that aspiring filmmakers can do just to separate themselves from the herd, from the noise?
Well, I think that be themselves. I mean, you can be hard to peg Some people may like you, some people may not like you, some people get what you do, some others think you're crazy. But if you are true to yourself, if you only do things that you really believe in and that are personal to you, then you don't need the approval of anybody else. Really.
Right.
I mean, that's in my opinion what distinguishes not only the great horror filmmakers but the great filmmakers in general. Some people can go through life shooting B movies, and eventually they get discovered, by an audience that caught them at the right time. Some people go all their lives shooting sort of underground little things, and they can't find their audience. And it's a matter of being true, not trying to be somebody else or have some different type of budget. I mean, you'll find your audience, and your audience will find you.
All of them have them. All of them are some form of autobiography. Pacific Rim, even Blade 2. I mean, seriously, like Nomak and his father, that relationship is very much the way I felt about my dad, the poor man, but I have never made a movie that I wouldn't die for, and it doesn't matter if it's commercial or people think it's commercial. I've said no to incredibly lucrative things, incredibly lucrative. Like my agent must be very unhappy with me because I go, no, I'm going to do this other movie. Okay. But all of them are biography. All art is portraiture. All art is portraiture. And all art is political. Those are things that you can't avoid. And you will know a person, like, for their art, if it's true, more than you would know probably from living together for 10 years. But my movies are all cabinets of curiosities of who I am. I used to talk to ants. I used to love insects. I wanted to be a naturalist, a biologist, an entomologist. So, everything you see is portraiture. I am that weird.
You're the best man I've ever met.
You do need to never lose your hope. It's an evolutionary business. In other words, it's going to be brutal. It's going to be horrible. It's going to be merciless. And if you break, you shouldn't be making movies. It's the end of it. You need that combination of resilience and fragility. So, it's you have to have it. Because you live with rejection for decades, sometimes as a director, and you end up making the movie you want to make. So if I say no, that doesn't mean I'm right or I'm wrong. You just say, F him, I'll show him later. I'm going to make it, and that fat bastard is going to have to say, I was so wrong, and hit himself in the head because he didn't do it. And I think that's the thing to do, is like, show us. Don't tell us, do the things. And if you do them wrong, but you do them in your own terms, that's how I define success. Failing in your own terms. Or first-time filmmakers, I always tell them, look, making movies is eating a sandwich of shit. And the only thing that gets a little better is, as the years go by, you get a little more bread. But the shit's always there.
But isn't that true of life also?
I think it is. I mean, I use another metaphor for life. But for film, I tell you, that one fits.
But in the end, somehow you find the joy.
Well, you end up convincing yourself that it's peanut butter.
And is it ever peanut butter?
I want to believe it is.